Welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't African, the talk show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so-called African American didn't find his way to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, Buck Wylam, and joining us tonight, we have a special edition. Joining us tonight is Ambassador Radine Amen Ra of FIA, and Radine Amen Ra is going to be sharing with us this evening of her travels down to Central America, down to the point that connects us, that connects North and South America, and what she's been doing down that way. So she's going to be sharing with us what she's been doing down there. And this is going to be very interesting. And she's going to share with us some of the things that we should be doing up here in North America. Joining me as always is my co-host, Rick Moon. Rick Moon, what's going on, Moon, man?
Ain't too much. I'm doing all right. It's good to have Ambassador Amen Ra on the show again. Looking forward to this.
Now, this past Memorial Day, everybody was perplexed about the 2016 version of the miniseries Roots. Well, we're going to give Ambassador Radine to talk about that, and we're also going to let her give us her what we should be looking at in 2016. So, Ambassador Radine Amen Ra, welcome.
Welcome, and thank you for having me on.
You've been down in Central America for about the past 6 months. Could you share with us what you've been doing down there, and how our brothers and sisters and cousins doing down in Central America?
Well, we have a campus for the Institute for Indigenous American Studies. We're building a campus in Belize, and the last 4 or 5 months, yes, we've been in Belize during the winter months from our headquarters here in West Virginia. And basically what we've been doing is building and learning indigenous skills for home building, and we've built a complete 100% clay house. The house is 950 square feet. It consists of a loft, a downstairs, a bathroom, kitchen, and patio with outside garden. And we have started growing trees along with the trees that were already there, like coconut, fig, cashew, almond, grapefruit, orange, and some other fruits that are not known in the United States that grow indigenously in that quadrant of America, and we're located in Belize. Basically, what I've been doing for the last few months is living in the jungle. The school is located in the bush, and while it has been built, we have everything indigenous. So it has a bay leaf roof. We have the roof is made out of leaves, clay. We did put electricity in it. We will have water catchment water from the rainy season will be the water that will supply the showers. We also it's located with a creek, a nice sized creek, and a pond where we get our water. So for me, this trip, it was very interesting living directly in the bush without modern conveniences. And it was very, very enjoyable, enlightening, and it gave a lot of insight to what we need and what we don't need, and how an artificial system was developed to remove people under the guise of convenience away from their connection with Earth and working directly with our part in the cycle of life on Earth.
Look, now let me ask you, when you were down in Belize, what are some of the noticeable differences that you see with the people, especially the young males in Belize, compared to what we're doing here in America, the young men are doing here in America? What are some of the biggest differences?
Well, the biggest difference is that the young males in Belize, and they're starting to change because colonialism is and technology is making an impact, a very bad impact. But most of the young people, males, know how to build their own houses. They know how to live with nothing. They can create literally from the earth. And this is something, especially the catchy peoples. You have different peoples. Most of the males have that level of ingenuity still intact. The younger generations who are now going into colonial schooling, they're losing it. So they're not interested in learning the skills of self-reliance as much as they're interested in playing video games. And it is interesting to watch how this is impacting the parents because they're not used to nothing like this. And they're feeling awfully helpless, as though so many of the students, the young boys, are being influenced by Snoop Dogg. All of that influence is being bombarded down there. Facebook, all of it. You have Facebook Belize, and the different ethnic groups that live there. And certain ethnic groups are keeping their eye on the larger picture. Others are being influenced to ignore. Many of the indigenous Amerindian people there, a lot of them have left Belize and have moved to the States. The United States is deporting a lot of Belizeans back, especially males, to Belize, and and giving them a one-way ticket back. And I have been able to watch over the years that transition from being in the United States and being somewhat more of a street thug to coming to Belize, where it's becoming more street thuggish. They're having a higher crime rate now, but which is being blamed on these young men, but it's not really being done by them. On how their whole consciousness it has been an awakening for them. And many of them come down and want to do entrepreneurial, open up businesses because they have a different level of exposure. So it's always interesting watching what they go through to integrate into a society that is really a lot more fluidic than ours, but it does not have the convenience that we take for granted here.
Now, when you're in Belize, this is something I always want to know. When you're in Belize, what does the United States look like when you're on the outside looking in? How does it look? What is that picture like?
Well, when from the outside looking in, for me, I really see the degradation and what was stolen from our people, because it is wonderful to see people who have no money, okay, but they're able to use what finances they do get to create what they need, fix a car. I've seen someone fix a car with nothing but a monkey wrench, and they had on sandals. And there is no AAA there, so if your car breaks down, you got to fix it. And how they work together. However, I've also seen at the other end of it where people who don't have anything and know how to live with the earth, they don't necessarily have a need to become entrepreneurial. You can go
explain that. Explain that.
Well, some males just can go fishing every day and smoke reefer all day. It's not like they can't build a house get some sticks and make their own twine and tie it up. And the only thing they may need is a radio. And they can drink stouts and beer all day. And if they're hungry, they can go out if they're on the ocean, you can go out to the ocean and get a dinghy. And, all the men work together. So you go out with some friends and you go fishing. and somebody brings some fish in, and you throw it on the they don't have stoves like we have. They're just now coming in, but they can make a fire, and the food is actually much better on the open fire and what they use for cooking than it is on a stove. So if you're inland, the men go deer hunting. They are not allowed with guns, but they go with a kind of BB gun, and they go deer hunting. So they go deer hunting. We eat not alligator, but gibnut. We eat other kinds of fish. You can go to the lagoon and get fish. So when it comes to your necessary life maintenance, it's well provided for. You really don't miss anything. You know, you get thirsty, get a coconut, and you get it right off the coconut tree. And there's different kinds of coconut. So while I was there and living in the bush, one of the things I learned very well was I never went hungry. You know, here I was, there was no stores, there's no conveniences for self-reliance that we go to. If they have a store, the store is selling cookies and beer and comfort addictions, but they're not selling. You don't have to go to the store for food. You need anything, it's right there. And they make it from scratch. So I never wanted for water. The water is delicious. I washed in the creek. I washed my clothes in the creek. I went to the creek and got my water for my cooking and my beverage. I really didn't need, if I needed plantain to eat, I went out, and when the plantain was ripe and ready, you went and you cut off a plantain that had 6 or 7 plantain on it. So that lasts you a few days. Now, did you eat from convenience? No. You ate what was provided by nature. And when nature, the cashew trees came in, I mean, cashew juice is absolutely phenomenal. And you did not need a lot of it. So by the time you drank one green coconut, you was full for the rest of the day. When grapefruit season was in, you eat you some grapefruit and you make a cornmeal corpanadas, or if you want eggs, most of the people grow their own chickens. So, you know, you just get a chicken get an egg, but none of this stuff actually cost any money. However, the expense comes if you would like to make a telephone call, if you need a flashlight. All of these things, a basic washing pan out of plastic is very expensive. So the things that we go to the dollar store to get is very expensive for them, because if they can't buy it, they just have to make a clay bowl. And many more people are getting into the convenience of getting a plastic bowl versus creating one themselves from the earth. And it's interesting because if you want to keep cool water, there is nothing more keeps your water cooler than a clay pitcher. So you make a clay pitcher, your water will stay cool for days. You'd put it in a non-clay, a plastic container, it goes bad in a couple of hours with 100-degree heat. But there's
some of the things that they're doing.
Huh?
Well, I was wondering, because I've been traveling quite frequently these last couple of months, and everywhere I go, the people have the same sicknesses, they have the same mental problems and everything. And I'm wondering, are if some things down there that those people do that keeps them kind of living with nature? And if they are, what are some of them? That's the first question. And the second question, do you think we'll ever do that? because it seems like I'm traveling to all these cities, and it's like it's getting worse and worse and worse. And it seems like there's information out there. There's a lot of immigrants coming from places like Belize and some of the other places around the world, and these people are healthy, they're vibrant, they're setting up communities where they're economically, they got it going on. Do you think the so-called African American, are they picking up on this? Because to me, it doesn't seem like they are. What'll happen to the Negro in America if they keep going down the same road?
Well, the truth of it is that the people in Belize are not actually the people who live there all their lives. They actually take their skills that they have for granted, because there's a propaganda campaign through the United States that's constantly promoting, I call it inorganic consumption. And it's epidemic. And everywhere I go, the people who know how to stay healthy and live with the earth, they are considered poor. And I had an elder who was talking to me after he saw us build the house, and the house is built and it's beautiful. And he said to me, and he said, when I look at your house, it reminds me of when I was young. We grew up like that. We grew up in houses like you built. And your house, he says, and your house is beautiful. And he said, and we trashed it. We cut our trees. We had fruit trees. We had everything. We literally lived in Eden. And he said, but we cut everything down because we wanted to keep up with the Joneses. And it wasn't fashionable to have a clay house that stayed cool. They moved to cement houses. And a cement house is like a tomb. And it was brought there by the British. And that's what the British moved in, and they painted their houses, and they do what they do. And the people who wanted to didn't want to identify with the earth because it made them feel they was not middle class. So they gave up a lot of their indigenous living ways to adopt these artificial means of living. And let me tell you something. Diabetes is epidemic down there now. All the females have rheumatoid arthritis from the flour because they make tortilla. You make tortilla, and their tortilla is made out of a flour. And there is nobody there 50-something years or older who is not in some form of has diabetes, colon congestion, or crippled literally with swollen knees from arthritis. And it all comes from ingesting these toxic foods that were introduced to them. And the only people, the people who are still living closer to the earth, they're attacking them too, because they're putting their kids in school. And the schools are teaching them to ignore and to look down upon their heritage. And so these kids are buying drinks. And when I look at the ingredients, it's straight up poison. And they will take every dime they have to go get them one of these sweet drinks. Coca-Cola down there will kill you. And everybody's addicted to this stuff. And I'm talking about kids are, they'll fight for a soda. And the elders are aware. They're looking at this and they're like, okay, what's going on here? And they've actually came up to me and mentioned it. And as I was saying about the older man, he was telling me, he said, it wasn't until I saw this and it gave me those memories, and everybody here is getting sick. And we feel that we were better when we did not have these cement houses. We did not cut our trees. And we're stuck in this. I mean, they spent all their money to build these houses that will kill them, that does not support life. Cement is very hard. So everybody around the Americas are being inundated with this colonial innovation and technology and this sense of, if we do it, if you're not doing what we do, it's right. And they're finding that no, they need to go back to the dirt floor. They need to get off that cement. And they spent so much money building this cement that it'll take a long time for them to get out. So they're just stuck. So there is no easy solution. One thing that is still nice about Belize is that we can still go there. And if you are conscious, you can get skills. And that's what the school was for, is to allow people to come, stay in the bush. And the bush is not the bush anymore. It's not what you think. You're not in the jungle. The views are absolutely, from where we are and stuff, are absolutely phenomenal. Life is absolutely beautiful. Life itself. But you have to learn how to do a lot of different things. And you learn how to live without a refrigerator, and you find that you don't need it. A lot of the stuff that we have, we don't need, but those people desire. Do you follow me? A refrigerator down there will cost you close to 1,000 American. And you're like, okay, and it's not a good one. It's some knockoff. So they're not selling them quality. Everything is, terrible when it comes to inorganic. I would not go to Belize for that, but they've given them 4G. So everybody's now addicted to telephone. Wherever you go, they're going to have a telephone, even if they don't have the money for nothing else. Now, money for them is they're starting to pay for their schools. It's $10 a month in Belize to send a child to school. And somebody was telling me the other day, I thought I would never hear it say, one of my catchy mentors, and she was telling me, she's like, it's too expensive to have children anymore. And I was like, huh? What do you mean too expensive to have children? And she was saying how they went, they're charging them to go to school, and many of them now wanted electricity. They got electricity, some of them in their houses. They got water being piped, and originally it was just $5 a month, but and they could swing that. But now it's not that anymore. So they're working, and many of them just let the electricity go. To get on the bus used to be a quarter. Now it's $2 or whatever. So they're only making, the average person there only makes $100 a week. So when you start, for them, the pressures that we are under, they're under too. However, the mentality of the complete transformation into inorganic living is not there now, because they know how to go back to the jungle and get what they need. They know how to make their own furniture. They know how to make their own hammocks. If they really hungry, they go get an iguana. An iguana tastes just like chicken. So people still have what I call self-reliance skills, which in 20 years probably will not be there if things continue the way they're going. Because
now, while you were, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's it. What were you going to ask me?
I was saying while you were in Belize, we had some incidents that went on here in America that I don't think a lot of people really caught on to. A few people caught on to it, but for the majority of the people, the mainstream people, really didn't even pay attention to it. President Barack Obama signed a bill, or I don't know what kind of legislation it was, but he was striking the term Negro and American Indian from the lexicon of America. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, you're talking about, yes, that is a very, very interesting bill that was snuck into law, because actually it was a bill it was passed by Congress and he signed it. It was a bill brought on by Asians because they didn't like to be called Orientals. And And in that bill, they put Puerto Ricans, American Indians, and Negroes, as well as Alouettes, and which are Canadian Indians, and a few other terms. I have the bill right here into it, and it was interesting because what they did was by striking Negro, Puerto Rican, American Indian, Eskimo, Oriental, or Aleut, or is a Spanish-speaking individual of Spanish descent, and inserting. Now, these are the names. These are the new ethnic identities: Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, African American, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Native American, or Alaska Native. And what's interesting about what they did was there's no place for indigenous people of indigenous descent. So America, the children of America, were just totally erased. And they put...
Could you repeat that?
Pardon me?
Could you repeat that, please?
I'm going to repeat the names. It was Section 211 F1 of the Department of Energy Organization Act 42 is amended by striking a Negro, a Puerto Rican, American Indian, Eskimo, Oriental, or Aleut, or is a Spanish-speaking individual of Spanish descent, and inserting Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, African American, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Native American, or Alaska Native. So this bill secretly, covertly removed the indigenous people of America out of the United States federal law. This is a federal law. And when you read the whole act, it's interesting because it's under the Energy Organization Act. And right, Energy Organization. And the act is meant to for Congress to decide for public works and capital development and investment. And what's so interesting about this is that this is the one of the ways in which they call themselves updating. That's what they're doing. They're updating and giving new identities to people. Now, the Asian people ask for their identity to be changed from Oriental to Asian American. But we never asked for anything. So now people in the United States, continental U.S., because often it's forgotten that United States has 103 non-continental territories, like Puerto Rico, to say one, and the Philippines. Those countries would be for your Pacific Islander. Your Hispanic is for Latin America of the Western Hemisphere. And your Native Americans are traditionally people of European descent. And it was interesting because they did not change the definitions of what these names will apply to. Now, why is this important to us? Because it is up to indigenous children of America will have to fight for their human and civil rights, because civil rights was not fought for voting rights for Negroes, for African Americans, for Hawaiians, for all these other collectives of people. This was our struggle with the United States. Now, what's interesting is that last week, they're doing the Roots propaganda to Africanize us into an emotional state of feeling like your only purpose in the United States was to be a slave. On PBS last week, someone sent it to me, and they made it real clear that United States originally was built by Negroes. United States was a Negro people was a part, and they showed men dressed in colonial wear were part of the U.S. Now, if that's the case, those Negroes were not African Americans. So the ethnic identity of African Americans, where as of today we have close to 6 million people living in the United States who have actually came as immigrants by plane to America. And this is a way of covering up your right. And then being an indigenous minority is different than being just a person who came here as a refugee. We are not refugees to America. And Martin Luther King had brought that up, that we were being pushed into a position of refugee. Now, the question becomes, how did this happen? It happened because we collectively have not stood in our truth. When you do all the research, our males have supported the United States. They've supported them in war. They fought for the United States from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War, from Korea, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, you name it. Our ancestral grandfathers and men have always fought for the United States. Through this federal law now, all of that's moot. Now, I don't necessarily...
What do you mean it's moot? What do you mean it's moot?
It's moot because you don't exist. You're
right. Okay.
You don't exist.
Right.
And we're not the only country. United States is not the only country that has played this game on their indigenous population. There's another country in over there by East Timor that wrote out of their constitution everything, all their indigenous people. So what it's saying is that, and what it's saying is that we as indigenous people, whether we like it or not, are not actually a part of the United States.
Yes.
It has always been the case. The question becomes, like you've asked earlier, is why don't we want to be self-reliant? Why don't we want to support our lives? Because if Europeans that came here, like I say often, if they came here and asked our elders and our ancestors for a job, United States wouldn't be existing now. So the question becomes, why don't we do what we need to do? Now, you said that a lot of our people are indulging in inorganic living that's killing them. Well, I also am clear that they are also very well aware of what is happening to them. Many of them do not have another alternative. They just don't know. The indigenous church, the Black American church, is literally killing the consciousness and replacing it with fear when there's no need to have fear. So when a person wants to live better, when a person wants their life back, they're seeking your site. They're seeking the Institute for Indigenous American Studies. And so those are the people who will have a place to live in America. The people who don't want to live, and they're going to get caught in that fire. Now, I too was disappointed 20 years ago when I had to come. I did what you did. I traveled the whole U.S. And I was shocked at I don't care if you went to the mountains, to the tiniest spot that you have never heard of before. They had a drug problem. They had a liquor problem. There was domestic abuse rampant. Nobody had any respect for life. And because of that horrible curse that has been passed down from generation to generation, okay, you're going to see the degradation and the consequences of it. Are we asleep collectively? Many of us are, but is there a yearning in the younger generations that feel like they're trapped? Yes. So many of them don't have knowledge, but they're seeking it. And in the beginning, they hear it. They don't know what's true and what's not true. But after they think about it and it resonates with them, they do want to do something different. And because we're getting information from all over. Even the word Negro was, when we did the petition, it didn't have thousands and thousands and millions of people. No, millions of people are not interested, because many of our people have been conditioned to think like animals. We don't even think as much as animals. We're very, very small-minded. And that was done for a reason. Okay, but it doesn't change what the people who are developing, who life, the power of earth and the life of earth in us, okay, those who have a semblance of consciousness still working in them, they are waking up. And I'm telling you, I have seen a major change in the last 5 years.
Yes.
Now, I haven't seen the elders. Now, I'm not looking for them to change, okay? But the younger generations, and I want to apologize to them, because they're going to be left holding the bag of what the horrible crimes and deals made by the older generations for them to wallow in inorganic living. And that's what they're doing, wallowing. They're wallowing in it. And you cannot wallow and not pay a price. So some people are not going to make it. Some people did not do anything to support the future of life. And we all have a responsibility, personally, as well as individually, if you want to call it, to our collective welfare. No race of people, no collective of people were put here to take care of another collective of people.
That's right.
So that is, so everybody's thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, and more people are finding, no, it's not greener. No, it's not. And they don't want to change. If you're not willing to learn the skills you need to learn to live independently with self-reliance, you're not going to have that choice. And it's not just our people who are going through this. I get on the plane, and the plane is all the time, and I see one color or one collective of people becoming more predominant over the people who are indigenous. And that's everywhere. That's everywhere. And the people who are indigenous, they want to have a flat screen TV. They're not necessarily interested in their grandchildren. They have bought into inorganic materialism. So
go ahead.
No,
go ahead, man. No, go ahead. I want you to finish up that thought.
So life is watching all of us. People come here to West Virginia, they come sick, they leave healthy for a minute, because they're going back into those septic tanks of corrupted living. You can't live as transgender and all this other stuff against the rules of nature and think you're going to have prosperity with life. It just doesn't work. So I don't blame the United States for everything. It's not their responsibility. However, what can we do as though they're pushing us out, making us invisible? Well, some people think it's a bad thing. Some people, I think it's a good thing, because those people who want to live, especially our younger generations, because they're going to get caught, they're not even going to make it to 50 if they don't get the skills that they need, and we start paying attention to what was given to us. So maybe, people don't change until they pushed into a corner. Do you follow me?
I follow you, and here's we talked about this earlier. You were talking about roots, this new version of roots. And I constantly look at us as we're in constant warfare with all these nations that are coming here, and everybody knows it but us. But the purpose of this 2016 version of Roots, why do you think that was done, especially since Alex Haley was found out to be a fraud? This whole Roots story was, was a fraud. Why do you think that was put out today, knowing all that information about Alex Haley?
Because many of our people, especially sisters, have bought into the fact that they're following whatever's told to them. When you listen on TV, African American, somebody said to me, Negro is a curse word. And I said, well, how can Negro be a curse word when it's an international term that represented indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere? People in Australia are called Negroes. People in Belize were called Negroes. I mean, how can this now be a curse term? It also lets you know that at some point in time, we have to stop being followers, and we're constantly being inundated that we are weak, we are powerless, and that we must do what we're told. So we have this slave mentality. That's a slave mentality, is very, very ingrained and is constantly being reinforced. So many of our people will not change. I had someone tell me the other day, oh, I got to have money, 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 money. And I showed them where they could get food. I said, no, this is what you do with the money you have. And you'll have food, you'll have what you need, but you have to use whatever inorganics you have to rebuild organic living. Then you don't have to worry about all of that. Honey, they turned around. They did not do anything that was shared with them. And they came back to me talking about they were broke. Well, we need money to pay our bills. I says, well, when you learn how to live differently, you won't have so many bills. But there's no better teacher for life lessons than a good butt whipping. Am I right or wrong?
Check.
So, a lot of our people need to be who are not willing to change the way they think and learn how to think with their nature. And all of us are seriously emotionally damaged. They have damaged us emotionally. So it takes a minute for us some of us to even feel with enough internal security that we can learn something different. Only the strongest and the people who have the strongest in consciousness will make it if they're willing to change the way they behave. And the ones who are just not going to get it. But I am quite sure that life loves all of the children life created with its blood, and that our heritage has been so resilient for the last 500 years against all of these horrible crimes that have been put to corrupt it. From soul food, today nobody wants to eat soul food because it's corrupted. Soul food is not corrupted. It's the artificial pieces put into soul food. You don't put sugar in collard greens. So we, the people, at some point in time, they need to get sick enough, where they say enough is enough. But there is nobody in America right now, under the United States tutelage, is having a comfortable life living from the paradigm that they're giving. Am I right or wrong?
You're absolutely right. We want to go to a few of the callers. We want to go to a few of the callers and get some of their questions for you, if you don't mind. Is that okay, Ambassador Radine?
Yes.
Rick Moon, how you doing out there, man? You picking up what the sister's saying?
Yeah, I'm getting it. Yeah, but I did want to get back to the thing with Obama, him signing that bill. What I wanted to know was how was that going to affect, what's already on record? I mean, you can call people African American all you want to, but like myself, you and a lot of the people out there listening, we know that we're not African Americans. So would you know how it's going to affect, as far as how they keep the records on who's who now?
Well, the truth of it is this. It's going to erase us. And there's many other bills like it. However, you can't erase a people who take responsibility for ourselves. And that's where the American Heritage Registry, and we've been promoting this for the last 10, 15 years, that we knew this day was coming. And that if you want not to be recognized as a foreigner to your own earth, you need to be able to, we need our own registry to stay who we are and put ourselves under international legislation. And that's what the Declaration for Indigenous Rights was all about. So we have to remove ourselves from under this tutelage and put ourselves as a part of, which FIA has already done, of the international community. Now, are we the only indigenous people going through this? No. Are millions of people created by the earth to live on their earth who inherited that piece of earth, who is now under colonial imperialism and capitalism invasion? It is up to all of them to state their claim on what belongs to them. And even in Belize, you know, we have the Garifuna peoples, and they're under tyranny. Every time you turn around, somebody from Canada or Britain is looking at something that belongs in their community and thinking that they're going to buy the people's community. And you know, and they were smart. They put their earth in a trust years ago. So not allowing the earth to be sold. They can't sell it. If that was the case, if they didn't do that, there would not be no Garifuna peoples having any place for their generations to live. We have done the same thing here. And we have the American Stewardship Program, which we're asking people, come and help us purchase more earth so that you can establish communities and have a place to live. Two, a lot of our people are so busy being selfish. So it's up to us to put that knowledge and its importance into our children. But the minute you send them out to any kind of colonial system, you're going to come back with a kid that does not have any value for anything but their individualism. And it tears down the collective edge. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, really good answer.
Any other questions?
Was that any other questions from the other listeners on the line? Well, Ambassador Radine, I just want to ask a couple of more questions that we've been talking to a lot of youth lately. Youth, and what we're having the youth do, we're having the youth go back and ask those Afrocentrics and those people who are telling them they're Africans and Hebrew Israelites and Moors. We're asking them to ask these people, explain in their own words how are they these foreign entities that they talk about, and they're breaking these old cats down, because like you said earlier, these youth are wondering, because they're looking around and they're seeing all these foreigners come over here and doing better than their mothers and fathers, their grandmothers and grandfathers. So we're having them go back and ask these people who are teaching them this Afrocentric stuff to explain what they're talking about, and they can't do it. So right, what would you tell the youth?
They're not going to do it.
No.
You have to understand what's been going on especially since 1868. What is 1868 and 1968. You know, Martin Luther King in I Have a Dream speak made a comment that they had received a blank check, and a check, a no good check or a blank check or whatever, that said insufficient funds. And the question is, if they got a check saying insufficient funds, what did they sell? Because the United States just wasn't going to give them a check for no reason.
Right.
Okay, and whether they, in all my books, especially the Black American Paradigm, and even in the new book that's out, that's been revised, The Hidden Ancestral Identity of the American Negro, we talk about the change of names and when people change their position to the earth, to their earth. And the reason why they want to be African Americans, the indigenous males, is because they are abandoning their responsibilities to continue the development of their people. You know, we go around and we talk about Egypt. They got beautiful, all this beauty. We got mounds and cities here. Well, the question everyone should have asked is, why did we stop? You know, why did we stop building what we were in our creativity and producing for ourselves? Why did we stop creating our own expressions? And the reason why...
Because we want to be American citizens?
Well, yes. Well, but you have to understand something. American Indians or Negroes are not U.S. citizens.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying was, you know.
Right. Well, that was their way of being able to get into the material comfort. We did all of this. We sold out the future generations. I didn't do it because I was young, but the future generations was sold out to go to Macy's. Seriously. I say that all the time. So at this point in time, our younger generations do not owe the older generation anything. Okay, and I'm sorry that this has happened to all of us. Because if you're born...
Could you repeat that? The younger generation doesn't owe the older generation what?
Nothing. They're paying...
Not even respect.
Well, they can give... I'm never going to say that they shouldn't give respect. I think that... But I'm talking collectively. I'm not saying that you shouldn't respect your mother, because the minute you do not respect the blood of your mother who shared her blood life to make you, you go against the biggest principle of nature. So as long as we do that, we do not have a leg to stand on. It's almost like saying, I want to drive a car, but I don't want to respect the engine.
Right.
Okay, so your car's not going to move forward. And all of these different attitudes have been deliberately put in our life streams of social consciousness to keep us in a powerless life position. Okay, so when you understand what's really going on, people, they turn their backs. And if you know, most people will say, well, I remember my grandmother did a garden, or I remember my grandfather used to do this, and they didn't teach you nothing. They did not open up their mouths and share that with you. They knew better, but they did not share it with you because they were buying into a dream. Even Martin Luther King, no, not Martin, Harry Belafonte said, Martin, integration, are we leading them into a burning house? And he said, there's a good chance that this is not going to work. And he said, well, what happens if this is a trick and a trap? And Martin Luther King said, well, then we have to become firemen. Well, it's a trap. And nobody is calling fire other than people, and people like me are saying fire. And no, people are not responding. People do not want to hear it. But it's not on as deaf ears as you think. You know, there are more elder people alive than younger people because they didn't have babies. They told us not to have children. So our collective has taken a serious hit. In my mother's day, she's a daughter of 13 children.
Right.
And she only had 3 and didn't want them because they did not want to have to provide in the inorganic system. It's very, very hard. So in many ways, the younger generations who change their consciousness and are willing to learn how to work with life, okay, have a grace with them. Life is not going to wipe you off because of what someone else did. Life, you have a choice. And that is what life has had us do, and the students who have graduated and the teachers who are now developed. We are here to re-educate and give that food for your emotional development. And you'll say, well, why emotional? Well, everything in life moves by energy in motion. And if you don't have your emotions correct, it don't make a difference what you think. You're not going to be able to accomplish anything. So we have been severely injured in many ways, and that we have to, but we're not dead. So therefore, we have to redevelop ourselves so that we can have the resiliency to create a new future. And I think these younger generations can do it. I have spoken to every day. I'm elated to hear people saying to me, I've had a dream. I finally went to my mother. I went to my grandmother. They told me the truth. I found out the truth. People listen to your show. I already knew, but I needed validation. So they are seeking. Now, is every one of them seeking? No. Are many of them too scared to seek? Yes. But there is a power from earth itself that is saying, let my people go.
So, Ambassador Radine, if you had a wand that you could wave or snap your fingers to make whatever needs to happen, what would that one thing be?
If I had a special wand to do, I would have everyone go to their families, let's do help with the collective data bank of indigenous people so that we could relearn. We would need teachers. We would get everyone out of public schools. Everyone. That's just everyone out of public schools and save our future generations. Start teaching female mothers to how to really raise their daughters and sons, so that they will be okay being males and the females will feel okay about being females. And regardless of what challenges are confronting them, they are who they are. And if we could just wake that part of us up, they have the power, the tenacity, the resiliency of life itself in them. And they will overcome this. They will triumph. I am very clear about that. It's like I tell everyone, it's our conscious evolution is our revolution. We just need to rebuild our consciousness. And that's not something you can just push on people. But if people go through enough pain and suffering, they will. And the young people, unfortunately, have had it just as hard living in the United States as the generations before them. And they have lived in materialism. So that was if I just had $1 million, I could buy a car. Well, they had a car and they've had all of this stuff. And it's not all that it's cracked up to be. And that is a part of us that, what do we do now? And now it's time to learn your truth and what you can do and what we can create in saving America, because that is our home on earth. And that blood in us is the richest blood on this planet.
Ambassador Radine, how could the listeners out in the podcast world contact you and get in touch with you? Because they definitely need to get your literature that you've written, because it definitely turns on the light from all the people that I know who read it. So how do listeners contact you to get more information and more insight?
If you want to get the books, one of the books is already on Amazon. So that's The Hidden Ancestral Identity for the American Negro. I will be doing lectures this summer. All you have to do to come, and we're not doing them in states. We've been informed, through our meditations and doing our work, Life said that anybody who makes it to West Virginia, you can camp out here. We're doing the lectures under the trees. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
There's no better way to learn about who you are than to be with what was given to you and not stuck in dungeons. So I will, if you're interested, I think we're having them in July. I don't have my sheet of paper in front of me. But you can email admin@FIA.org, and you will be getting it soon, Carrie. And Carrie, you should come. You should really come and participate, because all of these, everything that we do from now on will be for solutions and sustaining viability. And if you people want to live, and not live struggling in poverty, but live and feel what it's like to have your energy, then this is where you go. Now, if you don't know that you're indigenous, and want to know what the Negro word means, I just gave you the name of the book, The Black American Handbook for Survival Through the 21st Century. You can purchase that one, that has surnames, at www.fia.org. Let me see what else. And we will be what we're doing here this summer is we're building an earth roof. We're teaching how to make natural products from scratch. So anytime people come here, this is a hands-on experience. And we are trying to equip. We are equipping as many of our young people in their 20s and 30s with skills. Right now, in order for brothers and sisters to make it, they got to get their skill bank together. And it's not hard, and it's a lot of fun. It is nothing more wonderful than to produce something with your own hands. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal on what you can do, and that's what's dormant. And we just got to get them prepared to wake it up. And I can't wait to see the programs that are created. I can't wait to see the young mothers and we're there to assist and help. It's not like I'm going to do this all along. No, we will help you, but we need help too. We need every young mother. We need textbooks that we have to write. We need coloring books. We need our own programs. And so even though it sounds like it's the dead end, it's actually a new beginning, because now you don't have to go and follow someone else's. We can create what we need for ourselves. We've been on both sides of the fence. So I don't think it's the end of the world at all. I just think it's the beginning of a new one. And once people learn how to work with Earth and be a part of life itself with Earth, they're going to be clear. They're going to be able to ride this wave and create a different story for our people. Now, as far as African Americans, we're not African Americans, and we're not adopting that. And so we will fight. We will stand up. And that's all we have to do, because most of the time our people's not standing for nothing. You know, I love Black Lives Matter. They stood up for the males. But my question is, why haven't males stood up about the fact that they're being imprisoned
and killed?
You follow what I mean? Why aren't they standing up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we gotta, they don't stand up because, so we got to change some of our attitudes of past and become and implement some passive resistance. I'm not going to ever tell anyone to go out and kill anyone. Killing, thou shalt not kill, is not just a biblical thing. It's a part of how life works. But there are ways life works in our favor, and we need to learn how to do that. We need to learn how to think from that. So as our consciousness rises, a lot of this inorganic stuff will not be able to affect us the way it's affecting us today.
Well, Ambassador Radine, I want to thank you for sharing this time with us and giving us some insight on what you've been doing.
I have one question, if I could, before you close it out. Can I ask Ambassador a question, please? What is the advantage of registering at FIA?
Oh, I thought I answered that. The reason why we started the registry in the beginning was because over in 1998, we had already, from doing the research, had realized that United States was trying to take was going to erase its history and its connection. In order for the United States to have homeland security, they got to erase the inheritors of it. Now, they're not going to wipe out our whole race. They can't. What they're going to do is get us to erase ourselves and to sit by and allow us to do it. The registry allows people, communities, okay, to be able to say they're indigenous, and we cannot be, well, I'm indigenous because I'm cuckoo, I'm cheese cookie who, and I'm cheese this and that. It is not an individual thing. It's a collective, and you have to have an institution to do that. And that's what the American Heritage Registry is about. For all the people, we don't care. As long as you carry the blood of America, we want you to register, and we want to teach you the skills that have been denied you so you can walk and be in and stand in your indigenous inheritance right. And that's what it has always been for.
Thank you.
Anybody else with any more questions for the ambassador? Cool. Well, Ambassador Radine, thank you very much. Since you're just getting back in, we're going to give you a little time to, get back acclimated. I know you got some catching up on some things to do since you've been gone, but we'd like to have you back to get like a 2-hour talk on, some things that we need to be doing here, because I know you haven't been here for a minute, and but it's been crazy.
Oh, I hear the news. I've been watching. I get more international news when I leave United States. So I'm very, very clear. They got rid of Al Jazeera English.
Yeah.
And, so a lot of things that we used to use, you don't have, but they still doing their work outside of the States. And so I am fully aware, and I can pretty much tell you what's going to happen next. It's not a rocket science to understand. Once you understand the basics, you understand what's going to happen. The question we need to focus on is what are our viable solutions, and that's what we're offering. But one of the most important is we must re-educate ourselves. And I want to thank African Americans Ain't African, because you're giving a platform for that voice. And I know you're under attack constantly, because FIA is under attack constantly. And what I want to say to you is that don't worry about all these parasitic paradigms that are coming out who see life energy and they want to suck. People are looking, so before they look, let's beat them up a little while. Let's get them to this and all kinds of artificialism. People who are falling for all that kind of artificialism, okay, are people who still have not found any self-respect for themselves. See, when you go back to saying, my grandmother, respecting your blood, that's when you respect your life. And you're able to forgive and forgive the days in which you didn't. See, we blame a lot of people for our condition, because we don't want to take responsibility for it ourselves. But the truth is, if our younger generations go down, is because we did not do our job, and they did not step up to learn how to get out of that box. And that's going to be what the future will hold. And those who do will make it. Those who don't won't.
Well, Ambassador Radine, thank you very much. We definitely got to have you back on in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, month at the latest.
Well, that's fine. I look forward to it. And keep up the good work. I know it's been a struggle. Keep up the good work, and we'll keep developing here. And make sure that we have an institution to get them their lives back. But this is only for people who want to live. If you don't want to live, then we don't need you. We're not looking for parasites. I'm being honest with you.
Yes, ma'am. So cool. And so until next time, you know, keep shining that light.
Well, thank you very much.
And you will see
everybody listening.
And you will see me this summer. And you will see me this summer.
Please. Good, good, good. Everyone,
yeah.
You know, the lecture, we're having a lecture, I think, July 4th in West Virginia. If you're interested, we're going to have a once a month underneath the trees, because we really cannot discuss what we need to discuss in public.
That's right.
I mean,
Right.
All right. Well, you will see. Well, maybe not July 4th, but you will see me sometime this summer.
All righty. Look forward to it. Thank everyone for giving me this moment. And I hope I brought
Thank you for sharing with us. Oh, you bring clarity all the time. Thank you very much.
Okay. On that note, Akichiwe, everyone, in our ancestral language, Akichiwe.
Akichiwe.
Akichiwa.